Hello and welcome back to the scemed video of the week. This is Jim Watts with the Tulsa World and Jimmy Trent. There we go. Yeah. I think that'd call that. Do we want to start that over again? Nah.
No, we're good.
Nah, we're good. We're not used to this anyway after how many weeks we've done it. Talking about what's coming up in the scene section for the next few days. And we'll start, Jimmy wants to rock out with a book.
Well, I think we're pretty good about when we get emails from PR pitches that I kind of funnel ones to you that I know are in your wheelhouse, and you funnel ones to me that are more in my wheelhouse. And for some reason, when you got one that said Twisted Sister, Rat, Motley Crue, you sent that one to me instead of keeping it for yourself. And
strange that.
Yeah, and the result was I got this book in the mail, and the amazing thing about Zoom is all this stuff is backwards, like Zatanna speaks in DC Comics. All the magic spells are backwards. But if you can read this forward, it's nothing but a good time. And it's the uncensored and comprehensive history of the 1980s hard rock scene. Some would call it hair metal, but they don't like to be called hair metal, so don't do that. Anyhow, I'm writing about this in Friday for print, and of course it's on tulsaworld.com online after Friday. But it's really a fantastic book done from more than 200 interviews with everyone you can think of from that decade of excess in not just, everything really, music included.
Who are still alive and coherent, yeah.
Who survived the experience, yes. And I don't know if you've ever read this book. Here's another backwards book.
Oh, yeah.
But it's Live from New York and Uncensored History of Saturday Night Live. The books reminded me of each other in that they're not written in typical book form. It's just quote after quote after quote after quote from the person who was there. So whereas the SNL book might be, here's a quote from Bill Murray, followed by Dan Aykroyd, followed by Billy Crystal, this other book was quote after quote after quote from all these people in the 80s rock scene, whether it's Bret Michaels or somebody from Rat or Motley Crue, and on and on and on, all for the sake of advancing a larger story. And I can't really recommend the book enough for people who love that music scene. And as I read it, I was looking for Oklahoma angles, of which there are a few, not a great many, but a few. And toward the end, there's a very nice quote from Eddie Trunk, the radio fan, music host Rocklahoma, about how important the first Rocklahoma was in 2000 whole music scene, because once something is in vogue and then becomes not in vogue anymore, people tend to degrade it and trash it a little bit. And that happened to the 80s rock scene. And the first Rocklahoma was really a group hug. So all you bands come back and be loved again this weekend. It'll be a Woodstock of 80s rock music. And of course, Rocklahoma's changed, but that really was what the first Rocklahoma was all about, was just kind of saying it's okay to hug these bands again.
Break out the Aquanet and have a good time, yeah.
There you go.
Oh, good. Well, I'm this Sunday. I'm dealing with books, but of a slightly more sedate nature. On Monday, PBS debuts the documentary Hemingway by Ken Burns and Lynn Novick, who did the Civil War, baseball, and the Vietnam War, country music, all these documentaries. This is a 3-part, 6-hour documentary on the life and work of Ernest Hemingway. And they do a good job with it. I've seen the first 3 hours of it, and they present they tell the story well. Hemingway has kind of become someone that people say he's more fun to read about than to read, because he had this larger than life, the big game hunter, and he was doing safaris, and crashing planes in the jungle and marrying 4 women and claiming to have slept with thousands of our, and they really get under his skin, as it were, and try to ferret out all of the complications that made him what he was. Because one of my favorite quotes from the thing is one of his first wife said, there were so many sides to him, he defied geometry. And because they go into race, they touch on the racist language that's in a lot of his work that was perhaps of the time, but still is hard in these days to read, especially when it's so pervasive. And his rather fluid ideas about gender, and most people are familiar with that from his novel, The Garden of Eden, although that's something that he dealt with years and years before in a short story called The Seed Shake. But anyway, I know too much about this stuff.
Which is why you have the job.
Which is why I have the job. No, but it's also fascinating. They have Jeff Daniels reading as the voice of Hemingway, reading from letters and from the books themselves. And one of the things that fascinates me, because I do a lot of writing by hand myself, is you see the manuscripts and they animate them so that you see the changes that a particular page went through. You see pencil marks being erased and new lines being written. And that's a fascinating way to see that, as spare and as lean as his prose was, the reason was that he worked at it really hard. And so I think you'll come away maybe not liking, but feeling compassion for the man and definitely appreciating him more as a writer. I mean, I haven't read Hemingway in years, and after this, I got out my copy of his collected short stories and started going through them. And so, yeah, it's a good thing to see. And that's Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week, 7 p.m. on OETA, just channel 11 in Tulsa. And they repeat the program that night. So if you miss the 7 p.m., they repeat it at 9 p.m. each night. So that's the big thing. What else you got going?
Sunday, we have the Flower Moon story. It's the big Martin Scorsese movie that'll be filmed in Pawhuska and other areas. And photographer Mike Simons and I were dispatched on a mission to go to Pawhuska without any specific instructions to talk to anyone in particular, but just go up there and see who you meet and see if people are excited for the movie. So Mike and I met an interesting bunch of folks in Pawhuska. Probably, I haven't met everyone in Pawhuska, but I think we met maybe the coolest person in all of Pawhuska. I'll just give it a tease.
Okay.
As a prime location for the filming of a movie scene up there. So it was just fun to get up in Pawhuska and meet people and see how excited they are about Killers of the Flower Moon. We kind of got lucky, and there was a pre-production crew moving through the downtown area as we were there. So you were able to see, at least see some activity that the movie's coming. It's going to be a big deal, and I don't blame people for being excited.
Yeah, I remember reading the book when it came out and talking with David Grand, who wrote it. And yeah, I'm really curious to see how this comes out with on film, because it's a riveting story. So okay, well, what else we got? Well, if you are, I know that you are, Jimmy, a fan of a place called the Pig and Out that serves burgers. I had a burger this past week that might not appeal to you, but it was tasty, at a place called Inheritance Juicery. They have a new location down on Detroit, near First in Detroit. It's an all organic place, and they have what they call their signature burger, which is made from the byproducts that they have left over from juicing all the stuff for all of the juice and smoothies and stuff they do. Um, the only thing it really has in common with a conventional hamburger is the shape, but on its own right. It's tasty. You just don't expect it to be to imitate a burger, but it's a burger kind of deconstructed. So you might want to check that out. That was our review last week, and for this coming week, we're going south, figuratively and literally, for a South Tulsa Mexican restaurant called Uncle Paco's that'll be on our list next. So, well,
now clear me up. So it's not an actual hamburger. It's not a beef hamburger.
It's not a beef. No, it's made from vegetable byproducts, and
Okay.
that sounds terrible. But when you juice something, there's a whole lot of stuff left over that isn't juice, and they're trying to reuse as much of everything as they can. So this is one of the applications that they've done, is create a burger patty out of these out of the leftovers of making a juice. And it's the bun, quote, is a portobello mushroom. It's got goat cheese and blackberry sauce that's sort of like ketchup. I mean, it's a burger completely rethought, and it's if you don't expect it to taste like a hamburger, it's very good. If you are expecting it, you're in for a bit of a shock, but I still think you'll like it. So if you need to feel healthy about ordering a burger, that's the place to go. So
well, I have a bonus question for you, since you're going to review a Mexican restaurant.
Oh dear.
How high of a criteria is it that you or priority to have good chips and salsa?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, it should. It kind of sets the tone, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
A couple of weeks ago, I did a review of La Tertulia, which is North New Mexico cuisine. It's very Mexican oriented, but it has a different spin on it. And the chips they had were marvelous. I think they're made in house. They're really sturdy, but very flavorful, very roasted taste. And their salsa was, I mean, it packed a punch. It woke you up, and so yeah, it's I wouldn't say it's a high priority, but it does kind of set the tone. So
being a tightwad, I like the Mexican restaurants from the standpoint of bottomless chips and salsa, in that no matter what the food costs, I can kind of eat my weight in chips and salsa and get my no matter what. Yeah. It's like an air almost.
And if they, if they've got a decent queso, you toss that in there, and yeah, you've got 3 of the 4 food groups right there. So
right there. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that'll do for this April Fool's edition of whatever we call this thing. Thank you all for watching, and we'll probably see you somewhere around town or around Pawhuska. Take care.